Like it or not, crypto still carries a certain stigma about it. Just the other day, I was being lectured by my mate's dad about how it was funny money used by shady people. Infuriating, I know. It's almost as if those no-coiners think that everything outside the crypto universe is as clean as a whistle. Now, I know there are a ton of blatantly illegal scams out there. However, what terrifies me is the plethora of dodgy practices that are somehow completely legal. Today, I'm going to expose some of these top legal scams. Scams that you may not even have known about. Scams that are taking advantage of ardent no-coiners the way they think crypto could. So if you want to sidestep these landmines, or help your friends to do the same, then you cannot miss this video. Before I drop those knowledge bombs, this maverick needs to come clean on a few things. I may be a guy of all trades, but one skill I'm most definitely lacking is financial advice. So with that, I say I am not a financial advisor, and everything in this video is purely for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes. Now, with that shattering truth out of the way, I want to welcome anyone new to the Bureau. My channel has hundreds of crypto videos on the shelves. That includes the most important analysis, news, and reviews in the cryptoverse. And even better, unlike Netflix, I won't charge you $9 a month to get access to all that content. Instead, the cost for all this knowledge is the low price of a smash of that subscribe button and a flick of that notification bell. Do that, and this crypto captain will appear whenever we release another video. Oh yes, one final thing. Behold the timestamps in the timeline down here. They are there to help you skip ahead to the sections that interest you the most. Okay, ready to learn about those legal scams? Let's lift the veil. Now, I know that most of us in the crypto space are being proactive and doing our research to find that undervalued altcoin gem. But cast your mind back to life before crypto. Now, I imagine most of you daydreamed about how you were going to spend that fortune winning the lottery, right? Now, admittedly, I was one of those people in my youth that dreamed of hitting that massive lotto win, buying my parents a nicer house, treating myself to a nice holiday, and all that other fun stuff. Now, in the UK and Europe, the biggest lottery out there would be the EuroMillions. When you consider that the top 3 jackpots have been a staggering £210 million, £200 million, and £190 million, it's no wonder that so many people dream about winning it. For my US friends out there, that top jackpot is the equivalent of around $290 million. To place that into context, that sort of money can buy you around 580 fully loaded Lamborghini Aventadors or around 100 of those Sunseeker yachts. So yes, that is a mind-boggling amount of money, and naturally that lures in many lottery players across Europe. After all, you have to be in it to win it, right? Yes, it is true that the lottery is one of those forms of gambling that has been highly normalized by society. But what many people don't think about is where that £2.50 for a EuroMillions ticket really goes. Here's the truth. Only 50% of all those EuroMillion ticket sales go towards that highly advertised prize pool. That means that the £210 million jackpot actually generated £420 million worth of total ticket sales. So that begs the question, where did the rest of the money go? Well, 28% of ticket sales go to good causes. That may seem nice. However, ticket buyers don't exactly have a say where that money is going, and it's not a given that those funds aren't merely lining the pockets of some charity chief exec. Then you have the good old government taking a 12% slice through government lottery duty. The shop owners selling you the tickets also get paid 5% of the ticket sale price. And here's the crazy thing. The chaps running the lottery take 4.5% to cover what they call operating costs. Now, let's take that $290 million jackpot. 4.5% of that is over $13 million. So here's the question. Does it really cost that amount of money to spin a few balls and call out a few numbers? I think not. Then finally, you have 0.5% that is apparently profit for the lottery operator. I assume that most of you have played the lottery at some point in your life. But how many of you knew that only 50% of the ticket sales went towards lottery prizes? Honestly, it's highly misleading if you ask me. Things get even worse for the lottery when you consider the chances of actually winning anything or taking down that monster jackpot. The smallest prize can be won by getting 2 numbers and no lucky stars. Seems easy, right? Well, you'd be wrong. The chances of that happening are 1 in 22. That's even worse when you consider that the payout is a mere £2.79 for that prize. Yes, a paltry 29 pence profit on that lotto ticket. But what about that jackpot? Well, the odds of winning are about 1 in 140 million. And to put those odds into context, let's just say there was a chap in the 35 to 44 age range. Now, what are his chances of dying in a year? Well, that would be a slightly terrifying 663 to 1. So that means that a chap like me is about 211,000 times more likely to die this year than to win the lottery. The folks at the CDC have also calculated the odds of being struck by lightning in a given year. Those odds are a 500,000 to 1 long shot. So yes, you're around 280 times more likely to get struck by lightning this year than to win the jackpot. So I hope that illustrates how hopeless the chances of winning the lottery really are. And what really annoys me about lotteries is how the dream of winning the jackpot has been so ingrained into our society. Indeed, most people think nothing of playing the lottery for every draw or even buying multiple tickets. Even if you just bought 1 EuroMillions ticket for every draw, then you'd be spending £260 a year on that, with just £130 going towards the prize pool. I mean, that expected value is terrible, and just imagine if people had spent that money on crypto over the last 10 years. To help understand how bad a deal that is, even a single zero roulette wheel has an expected value per spin of around 97.3%. With the lottery, it's a mere 50%, with the vast majority of that value going towards that big jackpot prize. Now, there's nothing wrong with knowing these stats and playing the lotto for a bit of fun. However, the problem I have with the likes of EuroMillions is that everyone I've spoken to isn't aware of any of that and has been misled, if you ask me. I now want to move on to my next legal scam, and that would involve the famous watch brand, Rolex. For as long as I can remember, Rolex has been a status symbol of success. Sure, that's largely due to some clever marketing. But what if one of those cryptos you hold had pulled a legendary 100x and you'd cashed out into dollars, euros, or pounds? I imagine one of the first things you'd think to buy would be a hot Rolex watch, right? Now, given that the affordable Rolexes without any gold will set you back around $10,000, you think that it would be as easy as walking into a shop and being thanked for dropping 10 grand on a stainless steel watch. Well, it turns out you'd be dead wrong on that. Check out any authorized Rolex dealer and you'll see almost completely empty display cases with a smattering of less popular models. However, if I wanted to get my hands on this cool white dial Cosmograph Daytona, I literally wouldn't be able to do it from an authorized Rolex dealer. To get a chance of just being put on a waiting list to get a shot of buying one in the future, then I'd need to drop a bunch of money on other jewelry to become a preferred customer. Spend enough and that might just give me the chance of getting that hot Daytona at some point. And no joke, waiting lists of 10 years have been reported to get your hands on one of those. Naturally, many people aren't willing to wait 10 years for that status symbol, and that forces them into the secondary market to get that watch. Now, for pretty much everything else, if you buy it pre-owned, you get a discount. However, if I wanted to get that same white dial Cosmograph Daytona, I'd have to shell out £26,000 for a pre-owned one. But why don't Rolex dealers just increase the price? Well, Rolex sets the prices, and those authorized dealers cannot sell them for a penny more than the recommended retail price, officially at least. However, earlier this year, an official dealer in Chicago was accused of selling Rolexes through the back door to secondary market dealers. Now, that seems like a perfectly logical way for authorized stores to make more profit and capture some of the value from those secondary market prices. But here's the major question. Why haven't Rolex just ramped up production or switched some production capacity from less popular watches like Datejusts to just more popular models like Daytonas or Submariners? Well, it would appear that Rolex is controlling the supply of profitable models, which in turn inflates those secondary market prices. Yes, that is a bit of conjecture and just my observation. However, this actually makes a load of sense from a business point of view. I mean, how many people would want to drop in excess of 10 grand on a watch if it lost half of its value straight away? I'd wager that this would make them less appealing. By tightening the supply, Rolex could basically manipulate that secondary market price, and that has additional benefits when it comes to marketing. Indeed, you have many YouTube channels that talk about Rolexes as an investment, and that's pretty good marketing for Rolex the brand. Also, think about all those authorized dealers with empty Rolex showcases. That's real estate they could have used for something else which they could actually sell and make money on. So it's no wonder that there are allegations of these authorized dealers selling these watches to the grey market for inflated prices. But who gets squeezed by all this? Well, that would be the person who's done well and wants to finally get that status symbol they've always wanted. But instead of forking out that price on the Rolex website, they're likely going to have to pay double for a pre-owned Rolex. Disappointing indeed. Now, honestly, this problem has existed around the Rolex brand for years, and it baffles me why any business would not ramp up production to meet demand. Is Rolex purposely manipulating prices by constraining supply? Well, I'll let you decide. Now, my next legal scam is the kind that you'd imagine a Bond villain would dream up. That would be the shenanigans pulled off by De Beers in the diamond market. The story of De Beers goes all the way back to the 19th century. De Beers were fortunate to secure themselves the biggest diamond mine in the world, known as the Kimberley Mine. Of course, there were a ton of other diamond mines in South Africa. But here was the problem. The owners of the mines knew that the value of their diamonds depended on their scarcity and demand. You see, there were copious amounts of diamonds being pulled up out of the ground, but there was weak or non-existent demand. That resulted in diamonds back then being priced similarly to semi-precious stones. This resulted in mine closures, with the remaining owners deciding that the only way for the diamond industry to survive was to consolidate and essentially create a monopoly. That ended with the formation of the company De Beers Consolidated Mines Limited. So, De Beers controlled literally 90% of the world's diamond supply, which turns out to be pretty handy if you want to manipulate the diamond price. Sure, stockpiling diamonds and selling them strategically was one way to influence the price of a commodity. But let's be real, any Bond villain wants to have full price control. So, to achieve that, De Beers needed to stimulate the global demand for diamonds. Here was the big question though, which country had the highest potential to support that diamond market? Well, the country selected was the good old USA. But how to drive up demand in a country? Well, the first step De Beers took was to hire an elite marketing agency called NWA. These chaps then did a bunch of market research to gauge the attitudes of Americans to diamonds. It turns out that Americans in the 1930s associated diamonds with luxury and the rich. But here was the problem for De Beers. Most people are not super rich, and that means it's a tiny market. So, to really stimulate demand, De Beers would need to open the diamond market up to a wider audience. But how to get people to buy a gemstone that they don't really need? Well, you attach that product to something emotional, and what's more emotional than love? At the time World War II was just about to kick off, just 10% of engagement rings contained a diamond, so there was huge market upside from that low base. NWA then went about executing the most successful marketing campaign in history by using celebrities and mainstream media to show off celebrity proposals with diamond rings. That's basically the same strategy people use today when it comes to influencer marketing. All that was to promote the idea that diamonds equal love, and the bigger the diamond, the more love you showed. That marketing campaign resulted in a jacking up of those US diamond sales by 55% in 4 years. Then, De Beers started unleashing marketing campaigns like, quote, "A diamond is forever." Yep, that's a phrase I'm sure you've heard. This was genius, as De Beers had worked out that if people bought diamonds and held them, these were taken off the tradable supply and that the market wasn't flooded with second-hand diamonds. So yes, De Beers could still support high diamond prices that way. But what about setting the price for diamonds? Well, De Beers thought of that too. In the 1930s, De Beers promoted the idea that 1 month's salary was about right for a diamond engagement ring. That was up to 2 months in the 1980s. So if you ever wondered why people say that 2 months' salary is the right amount to spend on an engagement ring, well, now you know. The incredible thing with all this diamond price manipulation is that it was completely legal. Moreover, we're still feeling the effects of this Bond villain-esque strategy even today. Am I right, chaps? Sure, De Beers took advantage of a momentous occasion in people's lives to make bank. Yes, it is sneaky, but it's arguably not as nefarious as taking advantage of people when they've hit rock bottom. That's not something that seems to have put off payday lenders. So, let's take a look at them, shall we? Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I find the whole idea of payday loans predatory and despicable. I hope that you've been fortunate enough never to have to take out one of these. But what they are is a short-term, unsecured loan with eye-watering amounts of interest. Credit card lending is bad enough with typical APRs of around 23%. But with payday loans, that could be as much as 1,500%. So, who are the folks crazy enough to take out loans at such ridiculous rates of interest? Well, the desperate, that's who. The folks that can get no other form of credit and need some money to tide them over till payday. Turns out that some unscrupulous people have seen that as a fantastic business opportunity and a way to earn supercharged returns on that loan. I simply don't understand how this is even legal. I mean, there are probably loan sharks out there that charge lower interest rates than this. There's a famous saying that the rich get richer. When it comes to payday loans, however, it's more about the poor getting poorer. The thing is that payday loans tend to compound the problems of the person having to use them in the first place, aka a lack of money. Needless to say, those insane interest rates can really financially cripple people. If you ask me, payday lenders are just loan sharks in a suit. Now, you might be thinking that payday lending is small fry and doesn't impact many people. However, there is one shady practice that impacts anyone with a pension and everyone holding stocks, and that would be share buybacks. Share buybacks are when a company listed on the stock market buys back some of its stock to increase the share price. Indeed, certain tech giants have even viewed share buybacks as having a greater return than reinvesting that money back into the business. One way of looking at this practice is that shareholders are being done a favor. After all, in a lot of countries, dividends are taxed as ordinary income, whereas capital gains are usually taxed less aggressively. But that logic falls apart when you consider that the bulk of shares are owned by non-taxable pension funds. So, why am I making a deal of this? Surely, every shareholder benefits equally from an increase in price from a share buyback. Well, not exactly. Imagine if you were an executive who could control the timing of corporate share buybacks, bearing in mind that these executives have pretty sizable stock options. This is how the scam works. Executives can strategically time corporate news to coincide with months in which their equity vests. They can do that by bringing future news forward and delaying news that would have been released before their vesting months. That practice is actually made clear in a study that shows that CEOs release 5% more discretionary news in vesting months versus other months. That's despite there being no change at all in non-discretionary news. Yep, that indicates news manipulation. Those news releases tend to lead to positive coverage and usually generate an increase in the share price and market liquidity. Executives can then take advantage of that by dumping stock shortly after those news releases. So, what is happening is that executives can use share buybacks to manipulate share prices for their own benefit. Even a former SEC Commissioner, Robert Jackson, talked about the practice. He pointed out that corporate executives regularly take advantage of share buyback-fueled price spikes to dump their shares on the market and capture gains that ought to belong to regular shareholders. What all this means is that the biggest pump and dumpers are not in crypto markets. They are the CEOs of some of the biggest stock market listed companies in the world. I guess that there's one rule for some and another for the rest of us. That's about all I have time for today, folks. However, I do wish to share a few closing thoughts. It is true that there are scams out there in the cryptoverse. However, that truth seems to be constantly blown out of all proportion by no-coiners who just appear to want to give crypto a good kicking. Now, after this video, you can imagine the type of no-coiner that enrages me the most when they say this. A Rolex-wearing CEO of a payday loan company who just proposed to his fiancée with a diamond ring and who plays the EuroMillions. In all seriousness, there are even more shady and nefarious things happening outside of the world of crypto that no one seems to really talk about. Yes, I know it's easy for people to parrot back some parts of some news articles about the Silk Road from years ago, but crypto really is a different place today. Some of the most exciting and world-changing tech is being built, and it's a shame for the ignorant to shut their minds out from this because of these silly preconceived ideas. So the next time you have a mate telling the age-old story that crypto is a scam, well, maybe you can enlighten them. Enlighten them about the pervasive legal scams that are happening all around us. Scams which are infinitely worse than anything crypto crooks can conjure up. Maybe that will change a few people's minds and help them get over the hump to finally taste the freedom that crypto brings. Now it's time to hear your thoughts. Which legal scam do you think is the most outrageous? Have you got any questions for this crypto guy? Now, while you're speed typing and crafting that thoughtful comment, I need to tell you about my socials page. Check out the link in the description and you'll find my Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. There you'll find a ton of exclusive content that you won't find on YouTube. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, you can salute this crypto captain by smashing that like button. If you'd like to see more videos from me, then don't forget to subscribe and ping that bell on the way out. I hope to see you around on the channel real soon. This is Guy, over and out.